Welcome to the Heart of the Cards, a conversation about creativity, inspiration, and dealing with what we're dealt. With your hosts, Dan Green and Eric Stuart.
Welcome to the Heart of the Cards. I'm Dan Green, and this is Episode 3, Part 2 of The First Threshold, referencing in the hero's journey when the hero goes beyond the world they already know. And we combine that also with the idea of the belly of the whale, which is a metaphorical death of the hero, in which they are reborn as someone more capable of the adventure ahead of them. And we rejoin this conversation already in progress with the very talented Eric Stuart.
You know, when you were talking about all of the stuff that you had to go through, and we all have our baggage and stuff like that.
You have tons.
I do. I mean, I can tell you. I mean, I totally do.
You have like trunks.
Exactly. I've got that 16-foot truck filled with them.
You got that damn truck. That's right.
But to me, I think there's also the two sides of this are. Sometimes we put these things on ourselves. We create the problems, right?
Right.
And then sometimes they are thrust upon us.
Right.
You know, I have my father walking out on my family when I'm 4 years old and carrying around that anger for so many years, and and being a fighting kid and just angry and all of that, and you've had situations that shaped you, and I think that for someone who wants to make that step or get out of their funk, sometimes it's look. You didn't create this environment that you're in, but you can get past it.
Right.
It doesn't define you.
Right.
It's just, it's part of who you are. I used this analogy when I was trying to explain like the relationships with people, like a romantic relationship kind of thing. I truly believe that everybody is pretty much got some damage to them, okay? They've got their baggage.
I don't trust anybody who doesn't.
Right, exactly. And instead of looking to fix someone in a relationship, I look at it as, okay, imagine two broken panes of glass. If they fit together, their jagged edges fit together and form like a whole, then that's great. But sometimes the jagged pieces don't fit. It's really one person not able to complete the other person, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But so much of us have this damage, have these broken, it's jagged edges, and sometimes that's stuff we create. I know people that have, made decisions in their lives that are destructive because they are destructive people.
Right.
Wait,
if I may paraphrase.
Yeah.
So fitting those pieces of glass together sometimes that then becomes a window that you can see this whole beautiful vista through, and sometimes it becomes just another pane. I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. I had to make a window joke.
No, that's good. That's good. Brought to you by Pella.
Dad jokes for free.
That's right. But yeah, I think that it's interesting that in your journey, because of the things that you went through as a younger person, then of course with the move and things like that, I don't necessarily. I mean, you're the one who's analyzed, what's been going on with yourself, but a lot of what probably affected how you thought of yourself was your environment.
Yeah, for sure. I'm certainly not suggesting that moving in itself is a huge trauma.
No, but it is.
It's a pain in the butt. But I had other things going on, right? Yeah.
Yes, as I think everybody does, and a lot of people think, oh, my problems aren't that big a deal if I look at what else is going on in the world, and the old thing when we were kids, there are kids starving in Africa. Stop complaining about getting out of bed and going to school. It's like that,
right.
That kind of stuff. It's like it's all relative. I mean, in someone's small world, like, in their individual small world, like these are major problems.
Yeah, there are kids that are well fed and well clothed, but they're starving for the form of attention.
Exactly. So it's right. Unless you walk a mile in someone else's shoes, you cannot judge what they're going through.
Right.
But if you're going through something, no one should be judging the severity of it. If it's making you depressed, if it's making you upset, if you're thinking like, what I don't want to do, I don't think I have the capacity to take that step to do that thing. You have to step back and say, these things will not stop me.
Right.
Now, I might not succeed, but we've talked about it too. The journey to me is the success. You must attempt it. You must make that. Just try it. Just try it.
If part of this conversation is intended to be in some way helpful to the people listening, I think maybe one thing we could extract from what we've just discussed is that sometimes this crossing the first threshold is a willful act of your own, and that doesn't mean it'll be any easier. And sometimes it's something that's happening to you beyond your initiative to make it happen.
Right.
So, but for anybody listening who's in either of these kinds of situations, I guess part of what we're reflecting on is that as difficult as it is, it can still be a part of a healthy process.
Sure. I think some of the greatest art is it comes from that suffering, that pain, the melancholy, all of that stuff.
Van Gogh was miserable.
To me, the best songs I've ever written are because I was in a dark place. But that's my therapy.
Sure.
If I did not write and get it out that way, then I would probably be a lot more depressed than I am.
My wife Michael and I would joke that, because she was also a singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
The joke being, or joke/humorous observation is that, once musicians get happy, their music tends to suck.
That is so true. That is so true. Oh, my goodness.
I'm content, everything's okay.
Yeah, my version of that was, I'm walking down the beach and skipping stones.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Oh, that is so true. It is so true. That also, on the serious side of that, it's, when you hear someone singing a song that is maybe something you've gone through or dealing with as a listener, it's nice to know that someone else has been there and you might, you can connect to that. I had a show last night where one of my guest songwriters sang a song that, her name is Brittany Blair. She sang a song that was called Choose Me. And it was a song, to her about her ex-husband who was, as she said, was a liar and an addict, and she was basically begging him to make the choice to choose her instead of all of these other bad choices. And it was a heartbreaking song. But she, in the question and answer part of the show that I do, I asked her, is there a fan experience where someone has connected to you, to your music or your performance and given you that shot in the arm to sort of say, continue your journey, continue playing music. And she said, actually this song, because when I played this song, a woman came up to me in tears afterwards and said, I needed to hear that. I'm going through that myself. And and it's amazing if energy is energy. If you are sad, if you can take nervousness and turn it into a great performance on stage, it's all just harnessing the energy. So if you are in a dark place yourself and you can take that dark energy and turn it into a beautiful song that might connect with other people, you've taken that negative and turned it into a positive.
As an independent production company, Andromeda greatly benefits from the support of its audience. If you're able to contribute as little as $1 a month, consider going to our Patreon page. Any support you can give means a lot to us creators, and we're excited to bring you more. Visit AndromedaProductions.com and see what's in store. If this is content you enjoy, please like, subscribe, and share on YouTube.
And I think one responsibility that artists have to their communities is to say the things that are happening, both internally and externally, speaking to the experience of being alive in a meaningful and relevant way. And this is bringing up a couple of things that you and I have talked about that I think is also directly related to the fans that we've met when attending conventions. So you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
But before I go into that leg, I just want to double back for a second to talk about music and times of duress. And when I was isolating and going through some of the worst of it in high school, I became a huge fan of the music of Peter Gabriel.
One of my favorites.
Right? And part of the reason why that was a connection point for me is because a lot of his stuff is really dark and not commercial. And then there's stuff like people know him for, I mean, there's that movie, Say Anything, and, In Your Eyes is probably his best known song. And it's very uplifting. It's a beautiful song. But that whole album, happened, I think, after he got to a better place. Now I'm contradicting myself because he got to a better place and wrote really good music. But before that, a lot of it was really dark, and that's where I was. But I had something that affirmed for me that, this is a thing in life. Mm-hmm. You're not always going to groove to what's on the top billboard, that not that I'm against pop music at all, but I'm talking about something that you feel connected to.
Sure.
And people would, even after I went to college and had some experience in the world, exposure to other art forms and stuff like that, and somebody would ask me who my favorite artist is, it would be pretty easy to assume that I would say it's an actor or a playwright or a movie maker of some kind. But no, my favorite artist was Peter Gabriel. Mm-hmm. And also when you look at what he's done in terms of his humanitarian work, you're like, this is a good man.
Yes.
He is he actually is a good human being.
But you're right. The hearing an artist like that singing those darker tunes. Of course, I always love the stuff from Games Without Frontiers.
Oh, yeah, great. That's a great album. It's a great album. He has a song on that album written from the perspective of Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah, for those who don't remember Genesis before Phil Collins took over, listen to some early Genesis with Peter Gabriel dressed in a giant flower.
Yes, right. Yeah, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, Selling England by the Pound. Those were art rock albums, but still lots of good stuff in there. Go ahead.
But I was going to say, but hearing those kinds of songs, especially from a place of what I at least believe is complete honesty.
Yes.
I think this is an artist that sings and writes and sings from a place of he's been there.
Yes.
And that's why the connection becomes so easy. I think we can sort of see the posers in the world, and this is a put on, and this is someone else wrote this song, and this other person is a great vocalist, and they're doing a great interpretation of the song, but I'm not buying it as they've been there. With Peter Gabriel, I think you feel like even from the romantic stuff to the dark stuff, you're like, yeah, I believe you.
Yeah.
And it's nice to hear that someone else has been there.
Yeah, for sure. And where I know you were anticipating me going with this is, so we have the great privilege of meeting so many fans. I don't think a convention has gone by where there hasn't been an experience or two where a fan will say something along the lines of, I was going through a hard time, whatever it may be. There have been many examples provided to us. Mm-hmm. And there was something about the way that they related to Yu-Gi-Oh! That helped them through that. Some would offer us stories about how they felt socially isolated, and then they learned the game, and they met friends through that. Mm-hmm. And that's definitely finding a community is a huge part of being connected, right?
Yeah.
In your life. And other people presented other challenges. There was a lovely young man we met when we were in England, not the London appearance, but the prior one. Mm-hmm. And he wanted me to know that he was on the spectrum, and part of his issues made it difficult for him to speak. And if I'm remembering it correctly, now he's a speech therapist and helps others.
Oh yeah, I remember that story. Yeah, that was.
I'm just so the listeners know, I'm kind of having a hard time not getting choked up. Not because it aggrandizes me, but I think that's a beautiful story.
No, it is, and I mean there have been, we know that it's an animated cartoon.
Right. We had no expectation that these would be things that people would receive them in this way.
But because of the camaraderie of the characters, and I think the moral of the story that's underlying in the entire series, and I could see the connection. But it really is something that is quite humbling when we do get these stories. You just reminded me of the one. There was a young man, he was probably in his 20s, and he was telling us that his whole house burned down, and their family lost everything. Mm-hmm. And the only thing they had left, he and his brother, as they were living in a motel with the whole family, mm-hmm. he and his brother had a copy of Yu-Gi-Oh! They had like a DVD of Yu-Gi-Oh! Or something like that. And that's all they had left. in terms of entertainment. And so they watched that thing over and over and over again. And it was the only thing that entertained them through this very, very difficult time. And I know that sounds like, oh, come on, there's other television shows, this and that, but this was a legit moment for them. And he said it defined that difficult situation they were in and the escape they had. And that was and it was truly a beautiful story. I would never get these experiences if we didn't do these conventions, if we didn't do these appearances and actually get to meet people who grew up watching the shows or have rediscovered it late, now, and showing it to their kids. Right. But I mean, I think it all comes down to the fact that these characters there was something for everyone in them. It's you're watching cartoons obviously at a certain time in your life where you're going through a lot of changes, a lot of development yourself. For sure. It really is amazing. But I just thought that story was amazing to me.
Exactly. That actually reminds me, I know another guy who's really good at transforming things from where they were to a place that's better because he's got a lot of good advice.
Oh, really? And who would that be?
Well, his name begins with the W.
Ah, yes, our good friend the Wizard. I wonder what he has to say today.
Welcome to Wizardly Words of Wisdom. I am your host. My name is Tips Entrix, and your name is your name. And a lovely name it is, I'm sure. Or perhaps it's a powerful-sounding name, or a mysterious name. I really don't know about that. But I do know a thing or two about designing your bedroom. I recently got a cold from riding my dragon in the rain. Yes, I should have known better. And as I was recuperating, I realized my room needs to be redone. First, make sure there's room to move. It's very hard to relax in a space if you're worried about squeezing around this or not stepping on that. And I have this cauldron next to my dresser. And, well, anyway, you want to be able to move about without worrying about bumping into anything. Number 2, invest in a good mattress. Sleep is not a luxury, it is a necessity. And where you go to dream should have value. Allow yourself a fine mattress to sleep upon. You deserve it, and you will be a better person for it. And finally and thirdly, and yes, I am counting this time, choose some colors. Being thoughtful about the colors you surround yourself with will help you enjoy the space you are in even more. And a good color scheme will give a sense of unity and focus to your space. And thirdly and finally, it's just embarrassing at this point. It's not that I mind giving you one more just because I like you. Let your style come through. A room that merely looks good can end up feeling pretty uninhabited. It's the personal choices we make that are the most interesting. Well, that's all I have for you for now, but I will look forward to the next time I can share with you some wizardly words of wisdom.
So that's how you update your room. Okay, great. So I'm going to have to find some paint chips, pick a nice color, some new sheets, and learn how to clean.
Yeah, I have to get like an excavator for my room. That's my first step.
Let's just say we do a lot of collecting of stuff. Yes. Anyway, going back to what we were talking about before, our incredibly knowledgeable wizard friend told me how to fix up my room. The thing about Yu-Gi-Oh! and the characters we play, a lot of times people, they really are moved and motivated by some of the things that our characters say. And yes, maybe not so much Kaiba, but yes, with you, I know that you don't necessarily want to own that this is something that you specifically bring to that, but it's more of what people get from it. I tend to disagree. I think it also has to do with the actor involved. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, and just to clarify, I, again, never felt like when I was recording that anybody would regard it in the way that we just described.
Right.
But when fans share those stories with me, I understand it not because I'm like, yeah, I really was amazing in that role. No. I understand it because, yeah, I've gone to my own depths, and if it weren't for Peter Gabriel or comic books in general or Star Wars and Indiana Jones, those were the things that I held on to that comforted me and at times gave me some hope and some inspiration, or at least some relief from feeling, so horrible.
And the laughter stuff too. The Team Rocket stuff in Pokemon, I think, was the comic relief to a lot of kids that might have been, going through some tougher times. It's like, oh, those guys always made me laugh. Well, like, you know what, if I got a chance to hang out with Mel Blanc, Bugs Bunny always made me laugh.
Sure,
always made me laugh. No matter what.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the themes of Yu-Gi-Oh, the power of friendship and believing in yourself and you will always prevail, and Yugi being better than Kaiba always. Those are things that. Sorry, just had to bring
that's
it up.
fine. That's okay.
But we are getting toward the end of our discussion for this subject matter. So yes, crossing that first threshold, taking those first steps out, and then later having a more transformative experience, or at least being open to having some kind of metamorphosis, is something that everybody encounters on some level, probably every day of their life. But certainly there's these bigger chapters of your life where that's going on. You and I were talking about early life. You were 12. I referenced something when I was 15. But also, in that story of me moving from Indiana to New Jersey, my mom went through that same thing when she got her PhD and went from one environment to another. She stepped out of a huge comfort zone.
Right.
She was born and raised in that part of Indiana that we lived in. So she left a lot behind. While the transition at those first few years was very difficult, I am so grateful that I got the education that I got at Rutgers, that I met Greg Abbey and Anthony Salerno. We were actually walking those campus grounds just the other day because that marked 30 years since we first met each other. It was a beautiful day.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's remarkable that you may not know that you're on a hero's journey. Or you may be wanting to be on a hero's journey and it's harder than you thought it might be. But that doesn't mean that the game is over, the story's done, and everything's going to continue to suck. No. Typically, if you have the wherewithal to bear with or get through whatever's challenging you, you will emerge on the other side stronger.
That's definitely true. Definitely true.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that note of having received so much from our fans, we would love to hear from the people who are listening. We have a website that we would like you to go to. It's called AdromadaProductions.com, and I'll spell that for you now that you have your writing utensils ready. Adromada is spelled A-U-D-R-A-M-A-D-A, so drama, duh. Productions.com. AdromadaProductions.com, and share whatever you want to share. It could be a really heavy story. It could be a joke. We would love to hear from you regardless. And again, thanks so much for providing us an opportunity to share with you. Well, all right. Any other closing thoughts, Eric?
No, I think I can't top that. I'm always second best.
No, Kaiba. I mean, Eric.
But yeah, no, great topic today. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think that I'm ready to make another transformation.
Excellent. Also, just for our listeners to frame things a bit, we've been using Joseph Campbell's the hero's journey as a structure for these conversations. Those of you who have gone to Wikipedia and looked up the hero's journey, we may not necessarily tick off each of the 17 steps, and we also have other things that we will bring to these conversations, other subject matters, also other guests. I mentioned Greg earlier, and I know that he would like to be on, and my friend Anthony Salerno, Tony as I call him. So Eric and I have these other things in mind to bring to these conversations. So stay tuned. You never know what's going to happen next. And we very much appreciate you joining us in our conversation about creativity, inspiration, and dealing with what you're dealt.
Thanks for listening to The Heart of the Cards with Dan Green and Eric Stuart. We hope this conversation in some way spoke to you. Whatever your journey, we look forward to crossing paths again in the next episode. This is Veronica Taylor, and on behalf of Andromeda Productions, we wish you well.
Andromeda, always a sound choice.